You see the headlines everywhere, right? India is the fastest growing major economy. GDP is booming at 7%. But then you look at your own bank account, you look at your grocery bills, your rent, and it just doesn't add up. Let me tell you, you are not imagining things. So today, let's dive in and really unpack the hidden economic reality behind all those big, flashy numbers.
This is the question, isn't it? It's this incredibly frustrating feeling where on paper, the country is getting richer, but for so many of us, it just feels like we're treading water or maybe even sinking a little. How on earth can both of those things be true at the exact same time?
And this chart just nails it. It shows you the disconnect perfectly. On one side, you've got this massive, celebrated 7% growth for the whole economy. And on the other, you've got the cold, hard reality of what's happening to our actual spending power, which, yeah, has actually been going down. The national story and your personal story are literally heading in opposite directions. Okay, so to solve this mystery, here's our game time. First, we'll tackle the growth paradox itself. Then, we're going to expose what I'm calling the great GDP deception. We'll dismantle the myth of the average Indian, figure out exactly who is capturing all this growth, and finally, and this is the important part, we'll give you a brand new scorecard to measure your own economic health.
So let's get right into the thick of it. Let's talk about the biggest, most common headline number of all, gross domestic product, or GDP. What is it really telling us?
So here's the absolute crucial point. GDP measures the size of the economic pie, not how it's sliced up. A 7% growth just means the whole pie got 7% bigger, which, hey, sounds great. But the billion-dollar question that GDP completely ignores is who's actually getting the bigger slices. To make this crystal clear, let's use a super simple analogy. Picture the Indian economy as one giant restaurant. Last year, its total revenue, its GDP, grew by a very healthy 7%. Fantastic news for the business, right? But does that mean everyone who works there, from the chef to the waiter, got a 7% raise?
We all know the answer to that. Of course not. What usually happens is this. The owner's profits might jump by, say, 9%, while the head chef and the waiter get a pretty modest bump of maybe 2 or 3%. The restaurant's total revenue grew by 7%, but the benefits were overwhelmingly captured right at the top. And look, this isn't just some made-up story. It's a perfect model for what's happening across India.
Now, let's swap out the restaurant rules for the real numbers from the Reserve Bank of India. The top 10%, they're the owners, seeing their income shoot up by 8.5%. The middle 40% are kind of like the chefs and managers, growing at a pretty slow 3.2%. And the bottom 50% of India, half the country, they're the waitstaff, with their income growing by just 1.8%. So let's just focus on that number for a second. For half the entire country, a 1.8% increase in what they earn. It's a tiny number, but hey, at least it's positive, right? Well, not so fast. We're missing a huge piece of the puzzle here. And that missing piece is inflation. During that exact same period, the average cost of living went up by 5.8% every single year. You can think of inflation as this invisible monster that just eats away at your raises and your savings without you even noticing. And when you do the math, wow, the result is just staggering. An income gain of 1.8% minus an inflation loss of 5.8% means that for half of all Indians, their actual purchasing power has been shrinking by 4% every single year. They aren't just stuck in place, they are actively getting poorer in real terms. All right, so we've seen how that big GDP number doesn't really translate to your personal growth. But what about that other big number they love to talk about? Per capita income, or the average income. Oh, this is where the statistical sleight of hand gets even more deceptive. So on screen, you see the official average income in India, which sounds kind of respectable at over 2 lakh rupees a year. But then you see the median income. Now that's the income of the person literally in the dead center of the country. Half the people earn more, half earn less. And that number is just over 40,000 rupees. The difference is absolutely massive. So where did that missing 1,73,000 rupees just disappear to? Well, it's explained by what I like to call the Mukesh Ambani effect. Just imagine a room with 9 people who all earn 50,000 rupees a year. Simple enough. Then a billionaire walks into that room. All of a sudden, the average income in that room skyrockets to over 10 lakhs. But did anyone actually get richer? Nope. Not a soul. The average just became a statistical fiction, completely distorted by one extreme outlier. And listen, this isn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. It's exactly what's happening to India's per capita income. This chart shows the distribution of the nation's wealth. We're talking assets like property and stocks here. The top 10% of the population owns a mind-boggling 77% of everything. Meanwhile, the entire bottom half of the country owns a tiny 3%. The average is meaningless when the distribution is this lopsided. So, if the growth isn't going to the average person, and it's clearly not being distributed evenly, then who is capturing it? Where's all that money from the 7% GDP boost actually going? Let's follow the money trail. Okay, so a huge chunk of it comes from rising corporate profits, which primarily benefits the tiny 3% of Indians who actually own stocks. Another big chunk comes from real estate, where prices have shot up way faster than incomes, making homes less and less affordable. And finally, a huge part of the growth is just more spending by the top 20%, who are already responsible for almost half of all consumption in the country. But out of everything we've looked at, this might be the most important number of all. It's from the International Labor Organization. Even as the total economic pie has gotten much, much bigger over the last 2 decades, the slice of that pie going to workers, in the form of wages, has actually shrunk from 38% down to 33%. Meanwhile, the slice going to the owners of capital, business owners and shareholders, that slice has gotten bigger. So workers are literally getting a smaller slice of a bigger pie. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time breaking down the problem. GDP and average income are basically useless metrics for you personally. So, what should you track instead? I'm going to give you a new personal economic scorecard. This is how you measure what's really happening in your world. Here it is, 5 simple but incredibly powerful metrics. Number 1, and it's the most important, your real wage growth. Just take your salary increase percentage and subtract the inflation percentage. Easy. Number 2, the grocery test, which helps you find your personal inflation rate. 3, your savings rate, the clearest line of whether you're getting ahead. 4, your debt-to-income ratio, a key measure of your financial risk. And finally, number 5, big-ticket affordability. These 5 numbers, they tell you the real story. And let's just take a quick look at the grocery test. A basic basket of staples that would have cost you 950 rupees just 5 years ago now costs 1,300 rupees. That's a 37% increase. Forget what the official inflation number says. This is your reality. This tells you exactly how much your real spending power has been wiped out. And that really brings us to the core of this whole thing. On one side, you have the big headline numbers like GDP growth. In many ways, they're a form of public relations for the national economy. But on the other side, you have your grocery bill, your rent, and your savings account. That is your personal reality. So the key takeaway here is really simple. We have to stop confusing the country's growth with our own. Think of GDP as the scorecard for India Incorporated, the big corporations and the super wealthy. But those 5 personal metrics we just went over, that is your scorecard, and that's the only one that truly matters for your life. So the next time you see that big, flashy headline about 7% growth, just take a breath and remember this. Their headline is not your reality. The most empowering thing you can do is to stop focusing on their numbers and start tracking what truly matters to you and your family. Know the difference, because that's how you'll be able to navigate this economy with your eyes wide open.